Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for Product Alliance for having me here. So today's agenda, obviously welcome, and then we'll talk about what is PLG. I'll quickly skip through that because I think everyone here knows what PLG is, I think. We'll talk about why PLG and trust, and then we'll actually get into some actionable stuff because I want to leave you all with not just strategy, actually some toolkits and things like that. So thank you for the introduction. My name is Tulsi Dhamarajan. I'm CPO at Gale Healthcare. We are a healthcare marketplace that matches nurse practitioners who are on the ground with long-term care facilities and acute care facilities. It's just a phenomenal story, which I will actually go through later. I have about 25 years of experience in the industry. I started off in engineering, moved from India in '96. Which might age me a bit, and then have also lived in 3 continents. I've really been I've had to be able to live and work in 3 continents. I speak 3 languages, and it's been a really great journey. And then, so before we get started, just a couple of announcements because we love the product community in Austin. So right after this, from 6 to 8 is the Pints and Product feedback session. It's at the Hideaway Kitchen and Bar, and it's been sponsored by some lovely sponsors. I am co-founder of ATX Product Happy Hour. It's really taken off. It got clicked with product market fit from session 1 because it was really easy. It's just product people who are curious, who get together and drink together. So it was very easy. And so the next one is actually on March 2nd. And it's at Easy Tiger. So it's the first Thursday of every month, and we just rotate through all the Easy Tigers in Austin. And then Product League, Dan is back there, co-founder of Product League. They have a session on March 8th, and we're going to be in a downtown. It's in a location, Argo Design office on South Congress. So definitely check that out. Come for that. And then. If you follow that link, actually, it just talks about all the links, all the murals that I've used in this presentation, because I wanted to give those people kudos. Okay, so what is PLG? So I don't want to obviously talk a lot about what is PLG, but I think it is really important for us to talk about, I don't have my slides here, the talking points, so I might forget a bunch of stuff. So anyway, so what is PLG? I don't need to tell all of you what is PLG, but I want to start with a little story. My grandfather, much like yours, was a doctor, and he actually built his entire business with word of mouth. He bought his first house. He paid for his kids' weddings, all of that, and it was just word of mouth. And similarly, the story, and that's why I joined Gale, actually, because their story is phenomenal. They grew from 0 to 50 million in revenue with just word of mouth. One nurse telling another nurse that they treated nurses well. One facility calling another facility saying these guys are solving a real problem and they're great to work with. So just, I think when I think of PLG, it's just the technology aspect of word of mouth. And, just that's all it is. And so that's why, I think it's so important for us to think of, those old ways of building relationship. And as technologists, I think it's really important for us to think about how do we bring that heart and relationship into our software. And I think that's going to be foundational for PLG. So that's kind of way, when I was thinking about this presentation and I was like, what am I going to talk about? I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about trust because I think that is the #1 lever that you can use for PLG. And the quote from the kind of cartoon down here is actually from Canva. It's a company that we're all really familiar with. And they started off with a simple mission, which was empowering the world to design. And they've done just that. All of us, I think, how many of you use Canva? That's a surprise. I didn't see more hands up. But anyway, if you don't use Canva, I would highly suggest you do because it is amazing. And if you look at it, all they wanted to do, they wanted to do it with 2 big goals. One was become one of the most valuable companies in the world. The second was do the most good that we can. And they've done that. A year and a half ago, they got a $200 million funding round. They're covered on TechCrunch and Forbes and all of this of being leaders in the space. I think they have like a 4.9 Glassdoor rating, so people want to work there. And they got a $40 billion valuation in 4 years. So there is a way for us to be trustworthy companies. There is a way for us to put like the customer above revenue. There is a way for us to do this, and I think as technologists in the room, we owe it to the world to do it. So I just want to get into some numbers which were really perplexing when I started doing research for this. So according to a recent survey from Edelman Group, it was a 2019 trust survey that they did, only 39% of people believe tech companies put the welfare of customers above profit. That is just disappointing, and we need to fix that. So that's one. The second crazy data point is actually it's a survey that Forrester did, and they surveyed 200,000 customers in various sectors. And they basically came up with this thing called the B2B trust gap, which is basically the difference between how the company perceives themselves as being trusted and how their customers trust the company. Simple, trust gap. In the healthcare sector alone, the trust gap is 42%. So companies clearly think that they're doing an amazing job, but they're not. So, I think there's a lot of work that we can do. And I think, with trust, even if you think about the companies that you use every day, it's because you trust them. The cookies that you buy, you trust the company to be putting good ingredients in it. The drinks that you drink, every single thing is built on trust. So this is why my hypothesis of trust being the number one lever for PLG. Okay, I'm actually doing really well on time, so hopefully hopefully you all have lots of questions. If not, we can go start drinking earlier than expected. Cool. So, this is actually the quote from Forrester. They have like a lot of really amazing work. So if any of you want to start incorporating trust in your kind of day-to-day or anything like that, or starting to use trust as a strategy, definitely look at Forrester. I've included a lot of links at the bottom because they have a lot of really interesting frameworks that will help you kind of pitch it to your boss or your exec team, all of that. So, it's simple. Trust is confidence in the high probability that a person or organization will spark a specific positive outcome in a relationship. And all we're doing with PLG is using technology to do that. Very simple. So how are we going to do it? So I came up with these 5 components of trust. Like I mentioned, I pretty much came at it from a B2B 0 to 1 organization. Keep it simple, make it iterative. So we'll talk a little bit about the actions that you can take. But I came up with this because, it's like about bringing everyone in the room, which also we'll talk about. So the first is authenticity, which is speak the truth. And frankly, if all of us, there was a very recent, very interesting survey from Trustpilot that said 53% of consumers buy from companies that actually share their positive and negative reviews. And that's basically because they're speaking the truth. They're like, okay, yeah, we know this thing sucks, but we're going to fix it. And I think that's super important, right? Instead of, I was just talking to somebody in product, and they said that their marketing team basically, they had I think a 1.8 rating on their app store. And so the marketing team was like, oh, yeah, our rating just sucks. Let's just delete all the responses, and we'll get back to a 4-5 rating. I'm like, that is dishonest, right? So first step is authenticity, speak the truth. The second is reliability in delivering on promises. And I think we don't realize as technologists how important this is, that your software works like my grandfather always used to say, do good work, be good at what you do, and always deliver your promise. And this is what this is. Like, if your software is reliable, it does what it promises to do, people are going to come back. So I think, bringing to, the person before me who talked about bringing engineering into the room, that's really important for them to be part of that trust journey. The third is empathy, which is where, again, great that we had a whole talk about empathy. Knowing that user, really building for them, I think is really important. Speaking the same language as them when you're selling to them, speaking the same languages as them when they're in the product. At Gale, for example, we talk a lot with our engineers and UX people, and actually everyone in the company. When that nurse is using your product, she is delivering care. When she's submitting her time slip, she's coming off a 12-hour shift when she's been on her feet and with patients who are in pain yelling at her. So how do we create that connection? And the only way we can do it is with empathy. The fourth is reputation, and that's living by truth. I really love this quote from Benjamin Franklin. And really that is about, really like every single person in the organization being the the spokesperson for the organization and speaking the truth. And then the fifth pillar is consistency. And I'm going to talk next about who in the organization owns each of these. But I think it is actually exactly what I just said, which, be good at what you do good work, and deliver on promises across every single pillar, across the customer lifecycle, across every connection you have with the customer, right from that first time they look at your website or look at your ad all the way through your renewal cycle, is having that, consistency. So it takes a village. I think many people actually talked about it. Christina talked about it in her empathy talk about like everyone needs to come into the organization. I think Katie talked about it in her data talk about everyone in the organization sharing data, being part of the conversation. So it does take a village. And I think trust and PLG is also very similar. Like as a product person, I don't know how many conversations I've had where like some exec will come to me and say like, Tulsi, we just need to put PLG on the roadmap, just do it. And I'm like, I don't think it happens that way, So hopefully, with this presentation, you have enough tools to say like yes and again, like I said, like it's like PLG and trust is a cultural shift in the organization. It's a transformation of the organization. Everyone needs to come along for the ride. And then, it's just a lot of conversations. And it is about finding the right people in the room to have those conversations. So my kind of proposal is, you find kind of stakeholders across the organizations, owners across the organizations who own each of these. So authenticity is marketing. Reliability, of course, engineering, our best friends. Empathy is UX and research. Reputation is anyone who's touching the customer. It could be sales, it could be ops, it could be the CS team. And then I think consistency is product. Of course, the CPO would say that, we are going to be the glue that makes it all happen. So you're probably wondering, like, how is this all going to work? So first, I think step one is to figure out who is not in the room, right? Like every single slide or document I looked at about PLG was like, yeah, sales, marketing, success, engineering, product. But they forgot about UX and design. They don't talk about UX and design. They don't talk about the operations team that's like on the ground solving these problems. So my kind of proposal is really think about creating this cross-team structure across the whole organization, making it a top-line initiative for the organization, and we'll talk a little bit about the how in just a few minutes. And I think like product, all of us as product leaders, we're curious, we're communicators, so it is nice if product is that glue in the middle rather than marketing, because I think we're closer to the product, and if it is a PLG motion, then it is important that product is driving that change. This is my last slide, and we can definitely move to Q&A. So it's a simple plan, and I think I do also want to say that we're actually in the process of putting a plan in place. So I'm hoping that in a month I'll have like a PLG and trust toolkit that I can share with you all. It'll be an MVP, and then maybe in 6 months it'll actually be much better and tested, and hopefully better. So the first one, of course, very obvious, create a strategy. I think it is super important to have exec buy-in. So luckily for me, it's a little bit easier for me because I can talk to the CEO and the CMO and it's fine. But I think the starting point for us was really just ladder it up to 2 big OKRs in the organization, which laddered up to our North Star metric, which is the number of shifts that we complete in a year. So that was the first thing. The second thing I think was really creating this like tiger team around the whole thing. So we're kicking it off in March, so I'll let you all know how this plan goes. It may not go at all, but we're meeting every other 2 weeks. It is a priority initiative. It's on every single team's like initiatives for the quarter. But even though we're kicking it off in March, it is like a Q2 thing that we're going to work on. So doing enough planning and putting those habits in place and those rituals in place so that we know we can be successful. Something you'll probably see in every single one of my columns, which I don't think I need to talk to you all as product people, but like communicate early, communicate often, repeat the freaking communications 21 times if you have to, because people don't listen. I remember some speaker actually said this. But yeah, I think that's really important. It's really important also to get excitement across the organization. So we're actually thinking of starting like a new habit, like trust office hours, where anyone in the organization can come and be like, okay, what is trust? Why are we doing it? Why is this important? Who is involved? Here's my idea for building trust. This is how we are eroding trust with our customers. So like making a kind of forum for that. And I think, going back to something that someone said, it also creates this tribal knowledge in the organization and this kind of buzz in the organization. And what that does is make it more important to actually deliver on the project. So that's the team part. The third, of course, execute. I don't think I need to tell all of you guys how to do that because you probably do that every day. But yeah, assign owners from every single team, drive those conversations. We use Asana. I think you mentioned you guys use Asana. We use Asana as well for cross-functional teams. And then we're actually going to have like a product person who owns the kind of coordination and conversation and how does it make it back into the roadmap and how is marketing going to be talking about this and all of that. And then I think it's using data. So again, somebody mentioned this earlier, but it's been really interesting at Gale. This is my 4th month, but almost every single day, I'll ask some question and I'll find some data source that I didn't even know that existed. So we are in the process of, identifying some of those data sources, but it starts off with asking those questions and creating forums for asking those questions and sharing the information and all of that. Similarly, finding out about user research or competitive information. I just found a whole folder of competitive information with videos and analysis, and I was like, why didn't I find this 3 months earlier? I could have saved so much time. So really starting to create those cross-functional owners, lots of spaces to share knowledge and come together, and that's the same thing with data. And then, This is a mistake I feel like I've made like at least 4 times in my life, and I will never make it again, which is instrument the product earlier than you think you need to instrument it. So we have done it. Of course, Google Analytics is a no-brainer. We have Hotjar now. We're looking at Heap and Mixpanel, and lots more. So a lot of instrumentation. And then with anything, the first iteration may or may not go as according to plan, but hopefully you can, it's not a one and done thing, it's like iterative, right? You might start with something super simple actually and just measure and iterate. And I think with that, that's my last slide. So hit me with curiosity, just a couple reminders. Oh, wow, lots of questions, okay. I do want to also say I am hiring. I'm hiring 3 product managers, and we're also hiring a UX person. So if any of you are interested, let me know. How do you identify good product leaders to work with? I think I have 5 to 6 measurements of a product leader, and I can also tell you a little bit about our interview process that we were just talking about. Number 1, curiosity. Number 2, learning mindset. Storyteller, charisma, being able to capture the audience, being able to bring people along the journey, because a lot of times, at our organization, for example, we have to bring a very kind of a team that is a little bit wary of technology, right? And really speaking, I think even if we think about our world today, people are afraid of AI, but we as technologists are really excited about AI. So how do we bring people along and say hey, AI is not bias, it's not discrimination. You're not going to lose your job because of AI. It's going to be an addition to your job. So I think people who can do that are good product leaders. Data-driven, frankly, I think product leaders are unicorns, and it takes me about 98 days to hire a product manager. And then I think it takes about 2 months for them to get productive. So we plan for 6 months from JD to PM being productive. And that's what kind of a pretty good technical recruiter. So I don't even know how people do it without a tech recruiter. So that's mine. I think empathetic, I think, is also another one. I personally, I don't necessarily look for domain knowledge when I am hiring, except for specific aspects. We have a pretty significant payments piece, because actually the amazing value prop that I didn't talk about Gale is we pay clinicians within 20 minutes of them finishing their shift. That's a huge value prop, but I need to get a payments PM. That's probably the only place that I would. Do product-led companies have to be headed up by product people? I don't think that's needed. I think a company is successful because they're solving a problem that needs to be solved. I don't have any data on it, Jonathan, but that's a really good question. Like Canva, for example, I don't think whatever her CEO's name is, I don't think she's a product person. So I don't think it's needed. Should product team own company? Yes, product team should own company level decisions, definitely. What are the red flags for product managers looking at new organizations? That's a good question. So I can tell you about what I was looking for when I was looking. For me, making impact with technology was really important. So I actually had a matrix of what was important, and after interviews, I would put my 1 to 5 score on the matrix. So number 1 was mission and impact, using technology to have impact at scale. The second is, after working with, in a very white male-dominated industry, I've also unfortunately had the chance of working with a lot of jackasses. And I was like, no, right? I'm not ever gonna do that. Every single person that I interview with has to be someone who I will go have drinks with, who will be my friend, all of that. That was super important. Third was that I think again, it depends on what you're looking for, but put yourself a matrix, create a matrix of what is important for you. But the third was I love 0 to 1. Like I mentioned, I've taken 4 companies from 0 to 1 to M&A, so I wanted to do that again. So I was looking for 0 to 1, but in our current kind of economical climate, I wanted like a 0 to 1 company with reasonable amount of revenue, maybe a Series A or Series B. I wanted to be at a company between 100 and 250 people. So as you can imagine, I put like a lot of criteria down. So I would do the same thing for you. And if you don't get like a good vibe on your interview, don't join the company. Say no. There are options. How would you keep your proposed structure from having product just becoming a PMO? Yes, not big fan of PMO because I do think product management needs to own. I don't know the answer to that actually. I might get tripped up a little bit during this process, but like one kind of philosophy that we're trying to instill at Gale is that every department owns its own project plans. So, the way we're going to do this is marketing has their own project plan, ops has their own project plan, and then engineering, product, and design are just using our regular processes. So I'm not really interested in us being like the PMO, and that's not the intention of what we're trying to do. Your thoughts about product leadership reporting to the CTO? I think it's different at different companies. I kind of report dotted line to the CTO. I actually talk to him much more than the CEO, who's too busy, and also has so many people reporting to him. So I think eventually it's about going back to what I was just saying. If you're aligned on the mission, you're aligned on working with awesome people, it doesn't actually make a difference who you report to, as long as you get to work, come to work every day, have fun, and do good work. So, and work with great people, which is part of the have fun part. Where am I? Where PLG is very much a long-term, what is your strategy if metrics are slow to show progress? I think it's going to be iterative, so our product, like I said, we have a clinician app, which is a mobile device, and then we have a facility admin product, which is a desktop as well as a web platform as well as a mobile device. And a lot of times, so one of our big OKRs this quarter is call-outs, which is when a nurse basically says that they cannot make the shift. And we truly do feel like if the nurse has a better relationship with the organization and a trusted relationship with the organization, we can try and reduce call-outs. But from the stuff that we've done in the past, it takes us 3 to 6 months to even start moving the needle on call-outs. And so I think for that question, which I don't know what happened to the question, but anyway, for that question, I think again it's just about setting expectations with the organization of when you can expect to see the change. Even when we talk to our board and things like that, we have set expectations of, the work that we're doing now, you're going to see impact in 18 months or 24 months. It's not just your app store reviews don't just change overnight, unless you delete everything, which then it does. But normally, it doesn't change overnight. When does PLG become SLG? That's a good question. I don't have much experience around PLG to SLG. Most of my experience is actually the other way around, where it's been a sales-led organization, and then we start slowly layering on PLG functions, and we can start, we actually learn from what's working in sales, and then we bring it into the product. So unfortunately, I do not know the answer to that question. And I think that's all the questions. Yes? Hey.
Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts on the Austin product community.
Thanks for coming every time.
My pleasure. Curious to hear more of just a little bit behind kind of the story and rationale
Yeah. I mean, I think too, like on the clinician side, we know that nurses talk to each other. You know, they're at the clinic or they're at the facility, they're taking breaks together. They're like, hey, like, how did you get this shift, right? And that's how like Gale grew, which was word of mouth, right? So now we're just bringing some of those techniques back into the product so that we can scale our word of mouth kind of motion. And similarly on the facility side, you know, again, like facilities talk to each other, they are like a network. So being a marketplace, we don't do any of that today in the product. So we're going to take baby steps because we have a lot of work to do before any of this happens. So to be determined. But we are pretty confident that PLG will have like all the data that we've shown and all the early research we've done, it will be able to like, because you know, like one of our marketplace principles is like you own the supply, you own the market. And if we can get PLG for nurses, just a simple thing of nurses bringing their friends onto the platform, you know, we're cracking that problem because right now it's like, where do we reach them? How do we reach them? How do we find good talent? All of that. So that's going to be our step one. I think we're exactly at time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you so much.